Oh man, boy, do we have a treat for you. What is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know you're officially tuned in to a very special edition of the HFWB Podcast Series. This is your host, Clifton Pope. And with me today, I have a very special guest who's become a very special friend in a very, very quick amount of time because the people who I bring onto the podcast, if you haven't figured it out by now, I basically share some sort of the same ideas, values, and beliefs, which is why I'm truly grateful for the people who I'm connected to within the community and stuff. And the person I'm about to bring on to the HFWB podcast series is no different because we're going to attack a three-headed monster today: the health and wellness world, the business world, and at the same time, we're going to get a little bit political and dive into a little bit of politics because the man who I'm about to bring on basically does all three of these things rather well. I mean, he's an educational consultant, he's a businessman, he's a politician, like I alluded to. He's basically the Looney Less Bully. He's basically the social educator who is in the fight against the USSA, not the USA, the USSA. I had to say that twice for the people in the back. But let's just say he's just a guy they like to call Mike Duckerberg, who is basically Obamaing against the socialist, Marxist, and Communist Party. And believe me, we're going to peel that back layer by layer. But most of y'all know him as basically one of the co-owners and the designer, and I like to call the face of TNT Health. Please welcome my friend, my brother from another mother, Mr. Mike Dimarzo, to the HFWB Podcast Series. Mike, what is going on, my man?
Not much, man. Just good to be back in Corpus here for the week. Thank you for having me on there, Clifton. It's my pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Mike, and I thank you for just making time out of your busy schedule just to simply bless us with an appearance on the HFWB Podcast Series. For those who don't know, this man, Mike, is one of the busiest men that I know. Like, the fact that he's here in Corpus Christi, Texas, just for this week and this week only for all of my listeners, and he made time out of his schedule just to be a part of this. I'm grateful for it within itself because he's constantly all over the place, moving and grooving, making things happen, and basically shaking up any community that he is in and that he's basically a part of. With that being said, Mike, for everybody who's listening to the HFWB podcast series and wants to know who you are as a man, your overall background story, and how you got so involved in the health and wellness space, turned it into a business, and at the same time dived into politics, stirring up the pot. Give us your best description on how all of these things kind of lined up and fell into place for you.
Well, first of all, like my little Facebook podcast goes on, I'm just a guy, right? That's it.
Yeah.
The health and wellness, the politics, that all comes from when I was young. You know, everybody would ask you when you're a little kid, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up, right?
Yeah.
My two answers were always, I wanted to be, well, back then it was WWF, not WWE. So I always wanted to be WWF champion, and I always wanted to be president of the United States. Those were always my two answers. Those were my dreams and my goals, right? So that's where the health and part of it comes in. You know, to be a wrestler, to be able to compete in the ring and do everything, you have to be in shape. You have to understand health. You have to be athletic.
Yeah.
So at a young age, getting into wrestling and getting in shape. I always wanted to be president. Well, if you want to be president, you got to be political. So at a very young age, I dove into politics. That's what my degree is in. My background is I got a BA in political science. So that's where everything starts from. You know, and well, getting the degree, I was working at GNC, right? So back then, GNC was a little different than it is now.
Yeah.
They used to, again, I'm old, right? This is before they had all that cool computer stuff we got now. If you needed to learn anything, you used to go up to the front. And you used to have this little computer stand there, and you'd touch, and they would tell you a little bit about each product. Well, as an employee there, you had to take a test on every herb, every vitamin, every supplement. So I got to know all that stuff very, very well, which is what led me into TNT Health, myself and my wife. You know, so that's where this all begins. Is right from the young age. I always wanted to be a professional wrestler or the president of the United States. You know, so
hey, there's nothing wrong with dreaming big things and wanting to chase after such huge things, Mike, because it's like we talked about this before. It's like your passion as into wrestling and wanting to become a wrestler and everything, which kind of leads to basically you wanting to train as hard as you can, basically put all the right supplements and the right food into your body to where you could continue to physically evolve when necessary, to where if you do get that call to become that superstar, you could. It's like, does the drive and the passion as far as your love for wrestling, did that kind of like you alluded to, spark the idea as far as like the vision of what you see with TNT Health, as far as with yourself and your wife, Miss Seda Salazar? Of course, shout out to Seda. She's a wonderful human being within itself. But it's like, where did this vision of kind of like TNT Health stem from? Like, what sparked it? And at the same time, as far as like, what do you look to accomplish with the TNT Health Branch for those who are listening to the HFWB Podcast Series and wondering, what is TNT Health and how can it help myself or anyone who's listening better their overall health and their overall well-being?
The TNT brand itself stems from I was in the oil field. We spent 300 plus days a year out away from my family. In order for myself and Seda's relationship to continue on, we had to figure out a way to get me home. So Seda, who's actually much smarter than I am, she knows a lot about health and wellness and vitamins and detoxing the body and everything else. And she actually had a clinic before where she would help people with different diseases like diabetes and cancer, help alleviate those issues, right? And like I said, I was in GNC before. I know about supplements, herbs, vitamins. I was a personal trainer while I was wrestling, because as a professional wrestler, they have this little joke, it's called a hot dog and a handshake, right? You didn't get paid at first, but if you showed up to the event and you participated, they'd pay you with a hot dog and a handshake, maybe a Coke if you're lucky, right? And you worked your way up. So all those guys you see in WWE, they all started out on a hot dog and a handshake. So you have to have another job. So I was a personal trainer for a while. Like I said, I worked at PNC. So in order for me to get home out of the oil field, we looked at different businesses that we could create, that we were passionate about. We're both very passionate about health. We're both very passionate about educating people and helping everybody. Right. And just naturally fell into the supplement industry. And I don't refer to it as sports nutrition, because it's a supplement industry, and I'll explain that later. And I had just happened to know different people. Like I know the president and the vice president of Blackstone Labs, which is what we started out distributing when we started out at the Trade Center, just opening up on Saturdays and Sundays. And we knew PJ and JR from Blackstone Labs, so that we were able to bring their products in and start teaching everybody, but we knew. So we take a different approach. That's the TNT approach. TNT, everybody knows it as explosives, but what TNT actually means, TNT Health means today, not tomorrow. Because when's the best day to be healthy? Today, not tomorrow. So it's TNT Health, today, not tomorrow health. So that's what that whole brand is.
See, and I love how you say that, your health today and not tomorrow. That's probably one of my favorite things I like about TNT Health, because it prioritizes the importance of, really the power of now, which is right here, right now. That's everything that you need, everything that you basically got to, of course, take that first step as far as just to find ways to find room for improvement. For instance, Mike, as we talk about all the time, it's just far as from the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual well-being. So that makes sense to kind of have it, explode into something special in a way, just for your overall well-being and stuff. And for people who don't know basically about TNT Health, and Mike, you could allude to this very, very well, better than I can, as well as your wife, Seda. Basically, for those who aren't familiar with TNT Health, basically all the products they have, the inspiration behind that, it comes from the people, the world that we live in. And it's basically, as you alluded to, based off of the best and top rated brands out there, as far as like your collaboration that you have with Blackstone Labs and stuff, and the quality goods that it carries out and it's designed specifically as far as like for every single customer that walks through those doors. Is there like a particular moment that you could think of, Mike, that comes to your mind whenever within your course you operate in TNT Health, where you were able to impact an individual so well, it kind of solidified like, wow, I might be onto something with what I got going here with the TNT Health, and just basically expanding it not only from a branch but to an overall empire? Is there a certain story that comes to mind that kind of like solidified it for you and for Seda as well?
I got two stories really. The interesting thing is it was our very first customer at the trade center, was a young man, high school football player, and he comes up and we're very goal oriented at TNT Health. We're not here to we don't it sounds kind of mean. I don't care what supplements you're taking, because our first concern is what is your goal, right? So when this young man said he wants to be bigger, faster, stronger, he's in football. I said, okay, fantastic. I said, what are you looking for? What are you looking to do? He said he wanted creatine. He's only 17. So we're going to stick him with everything natural. And I said, okay, great. What's your eating program look like? Well, it was garbage. There was nothing that he was eating right. I said, okay, but what's your workout program look like? I don't really work out unless coach tells me to. I said, okay, great. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. I'm going to tell you not to buy the creatine. And I'm going to tell you why here in a second. But what I want you to do is we're going to sit down. We're going to put together an eating program. We put him on his own macros, his calories, his protein, his sugar intake, fat, everything, right?
Just
Carbs.
full evaluation.
And then we put him on a generic workout routine. This is based on what he could work out. These are the number of days he could work out. So here's are the muscle groups you should be working on this day, this day, this day. Do this many sets and this many reps, and then come back to me in a month. Because what I try to explain to people is, because we not only do we have our own products now, but we work with very highly reputable companies. People will come to us and go, well, your product don't work. No, the simple fact is my products work and you don't. So I made sure that this kid was going to work first, right? So he leaves. About 6 weeks later, he comes back. He followed the eating program. He followed the workout program. And honestly, I almost didn't recognize him, because he had changed just without even the supplements, right? And then we put him on creatine. I explained to him the different ways you can use creatine and the different results you're going to get from it, and why it's beneficial outside of the weight room as well, because creatine is actually very good for cognitive function. They give it to some elderly people because it actually stimulates cognitive development and reacts in the brain. So it's not going to be a cure for Alzheimer's and dementia, but it can also slow it down and maybe deter it, right? So as you're learning, especially if you're playing football, you got to memorize all those plays and everything else and where you're supposed to be at certain times. Cognitive clarity is always going to be helpful. And also when you're tackling somebody, they're going to have some head injuries. So you want that brain activity to be there.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's good to know. And that kind of leads into like the next question I was actually going to ask you, Mike, as far as what would be your go-to supplement as far as to recommend for folks to, as far as get them on track to that better overall healthy well-being. And you kind of alluded to creatine being like the main go-to factor within all that, just from the physical aspect and of course the mental aspect to help out with the brain cognitive functions, as you were talking about. Kind of explain to people a little bit more as far as how they can benefit from creatine for those who are unfamiliar with it.
Creatine is something that's natural. It naturally occurs within your body. Your body naturally will produce about 1 to 2 grams of creatine on its own. Okay.
Yeah.
It can hold safely between 15 and 20 grams on a regular basis. So when you eat things like red meat and chicken and fish, you consume more creatine. You can also get creatine from other protein sources, things like nuts and peas and stuff like that. But majority of your creatine is going to come through primarily a carnivore type diet. And then you can also supplement it with a scoop or two of creatine. Most of your creatine products are 5 grams per serving. So usually if you're creating 1 to 2 grams in your body, and then you're eating another 5 to 10, and then you're putting on another 5 with that, you're pretty much maxing out. And they do something, us old school guys, we do what's called like a preloading phase or a front loading phase, because with the creatine, once you maximize the amount of creatine in your muscle fibers, then it's maintenance from there. So
Yeah.
what you do is the first 7 to 10 days, you actually double scoop it to make sure that you're actually overloading the creatine that your body can handle, maximizing it, and then from there you're keeping it at its max levels. So that way you can optimize its efficiency. Now the different ways to use creatine are everybody when somebody mentions creatine, you think the guys that are big and strong and right, and
Yeah, yeah. The muscle heads, of course.
It's definitely one of the results. By putting the creatine before you work out, you can use it. You can use the benefit of getting the strength and the power out of it. So that way, when you're in the gym, you can put up 3-4 more reps or go up 5 or 10 pounds. But again, regardless what products you take, it doesn't matter if it's creatine or steroids, right? It don't matter. If you don't use what that product is going to give you in the gym, you're not going to see any changes. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you feel that extra strength and extra power from the creatine and you're not moving your weights and you're just going to sit where you're at, you're not going to see the results. When you have the ability to do those extra 3, 4, 5 reps or the ability to put up that extra 5 or 10 pounds, you need to push yourself and do it. That's what that supplement is doing. Right. But a lot of people are afraid to go up, even though that creatine is giving them that ability to do it. On the other side, if you take the creatine and you put it post-workout, it's actually more for endurance and leaning you out. Because at this point in time, creatine is actually like a super highway for about 3 different amino acids in your body. So what it does is you have different amino acids that your body uses and takes in just through food and also your body produces. Well, it takes 3 of these amino acids and it puts them on like a super highway. So that way, when you're eating afterwards or supplementing afterwards with amino acids, it's going to take those amino acids and just shove them right into where they need to do. So when you're using the creatine on the other side of it, it's more for the endurance properties and the leaning out properties and taking those amino acids and super highwaying them straight into your body. So there's multiple uses for creatine. But as far as you were asking, is there like one specific
like a top seller supplement, like say for instance, for those who are listening to the HFWB podcast series, Mike, and who live here in Corpus Christi, Texas, never been to TNT Health before, they walk into the doors, first time ever, what would be the top selling product that basically goes out of TNT Health, pretty much automatic, natural at this point?
The one that we sell the most of is just your protein. But the reason I can't say what everybody needs is because, again, we're very individualized, goal oriented.
Right. Okay.
So, for example, Clifton, you were to come into my store and your goal was, to just lean out and maintain muscle mass. And we go over your numbers and we find out that, you know what, all of your protein numbers are there. You're hitting your protein goals. You don't necessarily need a protein powder then. There's no reason to buy it. So then we would take a look at, okay, well, what other products do we have on our shelves that would fit your needs? Now, for most people, especially beginners that are getting into it, protein is usually the biggest seller because they're not getting protein into their bodies because if you're trying to
getting that necessary protein amount that's required for their overall body weight and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I ask people all the time, you think you're getting enough protein? Yeah, I get like 30 grams a day. That's nowhere near. You should be eating 30 grams a meal, in some instances. So people don't realize that just to maintain muscle mass, you need to be at about a 55 to 65% ratio of protein per gram versus body weight. So easy math, if you're 100 pounds, you want to be taking in between 55 and 60 grams of protein daily just to maintain muscle mass, and that's on a very, very low end. And that's for somebody that's more sedentary versus somebody that works out. You start working out, for guys that are, or ladies that are in the gym, you want to be closer to that 90% to 100% just to maintain your muscle mass and turn it into lean muscle. So oftentimes when we're looking at people that want to gain weight and gain mass, there's a bunch of other questions that go into it, but we find that somewhere in between like 115 and 150% of your body weight daily in protein, what's going to be necessary, So oftentimes protein is our number one seller because, if you got to get it like for myself, I got to maintain muscle mass, I'm looking at about 200 grams of protein daily.
Yeah.
So I'll do like, especially post workout, I'll take a protein shake with 2 scoops of protein. So that's 50 grams of protein. If I add milk, maybe it's a little bit more, but it's roughly 50, 60 grams of protein. So I'll do it, post workout. But and even when we look at the protein powder, TNT Health carries different protein powders for different people. So if you're not getting enough nutrients and you're not eating properly, we're still building that eating regimen. You'll never hear me say the word diet, because diets are fads. Diets are something you do that are temporary. We're going to build an eating regimen for you, right? And we recognize, one, that you're a human being, and two, you love your sweets, your sodas, or whatever it is, because you wouldn't be coming to us if you didn't, right? So we're going to show you not only how to eat healthier, but how to be able to incorporate some of your favorite products that aren't very good for you, and in a regular routine. So we can have a cheat day or a cheat meal, a snack, a drink, and we'll spread it throughout the week so you reward yourself, right? Yeah. So we'll take a look at it. So for most people, when they're first starting off, Blackstone Labs protein is one of the best ones to do, because it has 5.5 grams of BCAAs in it. So when you don't eat enough protein, you're probably not getting enough amino acids. So we'll supplement the amino acids right inside of the protein. Therefore, it's a 2-for-1 deal. If your eating is pretty on point, then we look at, okay, well, what type of diet are you? If you're more the keto diet, we have Rich Piana's 5% protein, because it's not whey, it's beef, chicken, and egg protein, which fits right along that keto diet. If you're Texas, we got a couple products for you here. If your diet is good, we have Protolite, which has digestive enzymes. Gut health is super important. Clifton, I know you know this, but when your gut is working properly, your body itself can run more efficiently.
Oh, yeah.
Little protein synthesis and fat burning and sleeping and acid reflux and all this stuff, all the aches and pains. When your gut is functioning properly, your body functions properly, or at least better. So we have a protein that has the digestive enzymes in there to help gut health. And then specifically, we call it our Texas protein, because we know that here in Texas, it's still 90 to 100 degrees out here. A lot of people like to work outside, or even when you go to the gym, you go outside, it's 120 degrees. One of our proteins, Protolite, actually has, again, the digestive enzymes in it, but it also has electrolytes in it. So that way you can rehydrate while you're taking your protein shake. So so if you're doing everything well, and you just want to, especially in the summertime here in Texas, you want to rehydrate at the same time, we have the Protolite, which will give you the gut health and the electrolytes. So again, it's going to be very specific as to where you're at and what you know and what you're doing and how well set up you are, what your goal is, and what we need to do to get you there. So we take a look at each and every one of those factors when you come into TNT Health. And something that's a little different is we're not trying to sell you $200 worth of protein or $200 worth of supplements a month, because we all know, man, the economy sucks, right?
Yeah. It's basically based off of just like the performance level of that particular person and what kind of goals they're trying to go after, whether if they want to like lose weight, they want to gain muscle, they just want to have more energy. It usually just boils down to those three things when you look at the overall performance level. And I love your different and unique approach as far as just looking out for what's best for the person instead of trying to sell them hundreds of dollars worth of protein at a time, which you could easily do, but it's more so deeper than the money. It's deeper than that. It's just basically based on that particular individual and helping them reach the goals that they're trying to reach. Because you are right, Mike. You hit the nail on the head. The economy sucks. Inflation is crazy. It's like people are barely able to afford like rent, groceries, their regular maintenance bills, all of those things. And it kind of ties into what's going on kind of like with the political landscape right now. I mean, you got the basically election season. Like for those who don't know, basically when Mike is not running shop at TNT Health, this man is literally on the road 24/7 for months at a time, basically putting on his politician hat. And it's like the man is all over the place, basically trying to help, the fight for the USSA go on. I mean, he said it himself. He's just the guy. I mean, he's just the guy, Mike Duckerberg, just trying to take on the communists, the Marxists, and all these other different individuals from the loony left side, as he calls it. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this as far as like, why are you in the fight that you're in, most importantly, and as far as what are you trying to get people to see as far as within the landscape of not only just the 2024 election, but just politics moving forward beyond 2024. Because this is literally the biggest election of all time. We were talking about this on All Time, and Sada and I, we talk about this all the time. And I talked about this with even Emily too. It's like, if there's an election you want to vote in, this is the one to do it. We all know we got Donald Trump. We all know we got Kamala Harris basically face to face. And it's like, I mean, it's a little bit iffy, but it's like, what do you have to say about the overall landscape, and where do you feel like it's going to be heading to going forward?
I can honestly say the reason that I'm doing this, one, again, I've been involved in politics since I've been about 20 years old, helped out a judge in Erie, Pennsylvania. That's where my political background started at. I worked for both sides of the aisle before. So, but I can tell you right now, 2024, when you go vote, voting has consequences, and we're either going to remain with the USA or jump over to what I call the USSA, the United Socialist States of America. That's what we're basically deciding right now. So you have a choice whether you like the guy or not, and President Trump, put whether you like the guy or not aside, right? I vote for people all the time. I've met him in person, and you know what? I'd rather smack them across the face than deal with them sometimes. But I like what they do. I like how they run the country. I like how they run their area. I like because they're going to do what's best for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big person, but because of their policies, they line up with what I like. That's where I'm going to vote. So you might look at, and I call it a border czar. I don't refer to it as Kamala Harris. I call it a border czar because right now, the loony left, the socialist Marxist Communist Party, they are getting billions and billions of dollars in in-kind donations from the media, right? There's nothing that this woman can do that will ever be wrong, right? So I make sure that we refer to her properly as the border czar, Kamala Harris. So people
it's a lot that goes on within that. It's like my friend Kim, she sent me like a video last night in regards to like everything that's kind of going on with the whole race. And it kind of, most people don't realize this, is that Kamala Harris's slogan, as far as we are not going back, we're going forward together, she's basically plagiarized that from an actual communist website and everything. I forgot what the actual party's name is, but it's like there's actual video proof that basically lets you know right then and there that, are you sure you want to vote for her? I mean, are you sure you want to bring back the socialists and the communists? Because basically what they're trying to do, Mike, and I'm pretty sure you can attest to this more so than ever, I feel like they're trying to take away the one thing that makes America America, which is capitalism, which is basically business. I mean, businesses and corporations is really what runs the country. I mean, if you really think about it, they're literally in a handshake agreement partnership with the government, and they kind of bounce off of each other and feed off of each other. For those who don't understand that, I mean, most people don't realize that's pretty much part of the reason why you're fighting for it, as far as what you're doing, as far as just the importance of just saying, hey, do you want it to be the USSA, or do you still want it to be the USA? Because at the same time, you're just a guy just telling people as far as what you see and based off of what you experience overall within itself. So I mean, it really just comes down to just, stripping away all the emotions, the feelings, and, looking at the facts, looking at the policies, and basically basing your vote off of that within itself. And it's like, we could fact check everybody, fairly. I feel like, things will be a little bit better because, for instance, with the debate, and we talked about this earlier today, Mike, I mean, they were literally, it was kind of like a quote unquote jumping, or a 20v1, 3v1, basically the media and Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And I kind of brought up the comparison as far as it was kind of similar to where the Avengers basically tried to team up against Thanos on the planet Titan, and they got their asses handed to them so badly it took basically Iron Man to try to go one-on-one with Thanos, and he even failed with all the technology that he has. I kind of look at that as the best analogy of kind of what's going on right now. I feel like everybody is literally trying to team up to stop Donald Trump. And I know this because he's the one person who can literally shatter what's left of this broken system.